Good morning. Good morning. Good morning to those of you in the online pews, those of you here in Unity Hall. I share the chancel this morning with my dear friend, the Reverend Hank Peirce, who stands here with me to welcome you, to bring us together on this Sunday morning, this spring day in which big decisions will be made, small decisions will be made, but most of all, we gather to worship. We begin with the words of Gordon McKeeman, the great Universalist theologian and a member of a very old study group, the Freighters of the Wayside Inn, that Hank and I have been honored to be part of these past 15 years. And so Gordon's words are these.
Let there be light. Is this working?
Yes, it is.
All right, good. Let there be light. Let it shine in the places of shadow, in moments of pain, in times of grief, in the darkness of hatred, violence, oppression, where there is discouragement and despair, wherever shadow is put to flight, let there be light.
Let there be light, and welcome to All Souls, where all souls are welcome. You are joyfully called to worship. I invite you to rise in body and or in spirit.
And we're going to sing our first hymn, which is Shall We Gather at the River? And I want you to, this is a question. Shall we gather at the river? And their answer is yes. So I want you to, so you can even sort of swing your arm like a pirate. It's like, yes, we usually gather there. So there are the lyrics, and we're going to sing, and it is a great hymn to start off with today.
It is a great hymn to start out with, indeed. Passing the peace, that's you.
That's me. That's me. Each Sunday, we take a moment to greet each other warmly and pass along our blessings of peace. First, let's wave to the people in the online pews. We're so glad you're here with us. If you are visiting All Souls for the first time and you feel comfortable doing so, I invite you to raise your hand so we may welcome you and give you a special welcome. All right, there. If you see other new faces around you, be sure to give them a special greeting. And if you're visiting online for the first time, please let us know in the chat. Let's bump elbows and make a joyful noise.
Am I reading these words or are you? The translating words. Oh, okay. That's right. That's right.
Ready?
You're doing the jealous thing. I'm doing the land acknowledgement, then you're introducing.
We acknowledge the Nahantic, Mohegan, Mashantucket Pequot, and Eastern Pequot people as the traditional caretakers of the land on which we worship. We honor and pay respect to these tribes, their ancestors, and their lineage, who today uphold traditional practices, art, and education. Some of these practices are illustrated in a new major exhibition at the Mystic Seaport. The exhibit, Entwined, Freedom, Sovereignty, and the Sea, centers maritime histories in indigenous African and African-descended worldviews and experiences. Entwined explores the enduring legacies, strength, and resilience of sovereign indigenous nations. So check it out.
Each week we light our chalice, the symbol of Unitarian Universalism. It is a symbol of liberation and freedom. And I'd like to invite Hazel forward. Come on up, Hazel, to light the chalice on our behalf, while the rest of us speak these words together. I saw on earth another light than that which lit my eye, come forth as from my soul within, and from a higher sky. Thank you, Hazel. Reverend Hank will light our peace candle. I'd like to light this candle in honor of protests that are happening everywhere. May all of those protests happen in peace and nonviolence, and may they be received with open-hearted and open-minded care. I read this morning about a protest in Brooklyn that happened yesterday that was particularly disturbing and disappointing. Disappointing is an understatement, if there ever was one. So let us hold in our hearts all of the places that need our care and concern and attention and witness in these complicated times. Amen. Amen. And now Reverend Hank has a story to share. I'd like to invite the children to come forward.
Look at you guys sitting on the, wow, this is great. So it is so nice to be here. And I've spent the morning hearing all about like the old church and then this space, and it's even better than what you had shared before. It really is.
But you know what? I didn't formally introduce you. Hold on. I skipped over that part. So let me introduce you.
We've known each other for years. You don't need to introduce each other. Oh, you mean to them. All right, to the congregation. Okay, yeah.
Reverend Hank Peirce to all of you. Hank is known far and wide for his, you've already experienced his robust personality and spirit, but also for kind of an underground event that he holds called the Preacher's Fight Club.
Shh. No such thing. No such thing. I don't know what you're talking about. Shh.
I'm sharing this because I won it once. Because these are stories that preachers love and know they can never share from the pulpit. And so everybody tells their stories. So this also gives you a sense of Hank's sense of community and fun, the way that he brings people together, his encyclopedic knowledge of the quirks of Unitarian Universalist and Unitarian Universalist history. He is a joy. He is respected and loved by so many of his colleagues, even minister's minister. And so I'm so happy to have him with us this morning. Welcome.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I think, and then you're supposed to say no pressure. I think that's the thing. It's so good to be here. And now something about me and that I have in common with all of you is that I also grew up as a Unitarian Universalist, which is not the case for most of the folks here. Most of the folks here have found this faith and have made it their own. But you and I have grown up as Unitarian, or growing up as Unitarian Universalists, and we have a different view of things. And one of the different views of things is that you know all the nooks and crannies even more than the folks who have been here in this building for a long time. Like Carolyn showed me the little windowsill over there that you all sit in that someone embroidered a little pad for, because they're like, well, the kids keep sitting up there. We wanted to have a nice spot for you. I love that. You guys got to own it. So I grew up in the first Unitarian church in New Bedford, which is, just down the coast a bit, east. And when I was about 6, are any of you 6 or 7? Like first grade. There you go, excellent. So when I was your age, my mother was the chair of the Women's Alliance, which was the women's group in the church. And someone came to my mom and said, we opened this closet that no one's opened forever, and we found a bunch of footstools. Here, in fact, we have 3 footstools here as examples. We found a bunch of footstools. Very plain one, a classic footstool, and then a very modern, Swedish design looking footstool here. And they are. You're right. They are. They do get. It's sort of like. It's sort of a Goldilocks sort of moment here with these footstools. Anyway, but the footstools that they found, that my mother found, they pointed out to my mom, were just plain. They had been moth-eaten. They'd been put in there for years. And my mom said, I'm going to get not just the Women's Alliance, but anybody else in church who would like to take one of these footstools home and decorate it. So people were like, yeah. So people did that. They took the footstools. Oh, some volunteers to decorate them. They're great. Oh yeah, there we go. Because so people took them home, and some people embroidered them. Some people made quilts. Some people painted on them. And then in the church, one day they had this big, it was almost like an art show. Right, and they brought them all out, and I remember my sister and I and the minister's son Ron Calloway, that the three of us and other folks, kept running up and down the rows of pews, looking in to see where people how they all looked different. It was beautiful. It was great. It was so much fun for us to be able to run down and see. Like, some of them were beautiful, some of them were plain, some people had just gotten some carpet scraps they had left over in their closet and put it on there, but that was fine too. It was so great. And I have to admit that growing up in a church that had footstools in the pews meant that, like, all of a sudden there was a lot of noise in the pews. Especially when the kids were there, because we'd be like we were like kind of fussing with it, and then it would fall over and make a big noise. And then I also remember like visiting a friend's church where they had kneelers, but I didn't grow up with kneelers. I don't know what a kneeler in other religious traditions, people would kneel during the prayer, and they have these little padded footstools. They look like footstools, and I would just put my feet up on them, and my mom going like, "Take your foot off. That's not what those are for." But the thing I love about that day and seeing all the different footstools, how they were all decorated, and looking at these three footstools here, these examples that we have, is that, you know what? It's a great reminder of what this church, what All Souls, what Unitarian Universalism is all about. It's all about that we come here and we're all different. We are all different people, but we're all welcome here, right? We're all welcome, regardless of whether you're tall and white or short and brown, if you're padded. All these different things, that you are welcome here and you can find a home here. This is a place for you regardless of who you are, how you are in the world, that this is a place where you can find love and be accepted. And then today is the annual meeting of this congregation, which I don't recommend for 7 and 8-year-olds to have to sit through. Oh, future parliamentarian, that's great. Yeah, that's great. But like, it's a really important thing. We get to run, your parents, the grown-ups in this church, the adults, people over 18 get to run this place. What a great thing it is. People have fought wars over that fact, which sounds crazy, but it's true. People having a chance to control the direction and the growth and the change that happens in this place. This place is a place of movement. As soon as I came in and saw this back wall, this beautiful painting, I thought, this is a place that's about movement and it's not just static. That's great. So as you head off to your classes today, just remember that this is a place for you, regardless of your age, no matter what age you are, that this place is always your home. And remember that and keep that with you in your heart. And now I believe you get sent off with an excellent song, I'm told.
Excellent song. Yes. With a tambourine, which makes it even more excellent. All right, here we go. Perry will guide you out. You shall go out with joy and be like forth with peace. The mountains and the hills will break forth before you. last week, as some of you may know or remember, Perry stayed here in the service for the youth group service, and I was in the classrooms. And what none of you know probably, and what I didn't know, is that when the kids go down the hall, they sing Trees of the Field till its conclusion. And I didn't know that, and it was such a nice thing to learn. And it's also a reminder, I think, for me and Perry that it's good for us to switch pulpits every once in a while. It's good to see what's going on down there. So we've come to our point in our shared time in which we bear witness to each other's lives, the joy, the sorrow that each of us have lived through since last we met. We do this as a reminder, not as a thorough check-in, but it's an important reminder that community is built, the web and tapestry of community tightly knit when we share in this way. And so I'm going to invite those of you here in person to come forward and light candles of intention. Reverend Hank will be distributing matches at the base of the ramp. And for those of you in the online pews, this is your opportunity to write in the chat, and Vanessa will tell you more about that. Thank you, Vanessa. And so we open this circle and this time for your joy and your sorrow both. Let's prepare our minds and hearts for what has been shared. Today is Kiana Ego's 18th birthday. Our beloved Kiana is down at the youth group, so we can wish her happy birthday when we see her later. And from the online pews, Peggy Sheehan Flood asks for our healing thoughts for her dear friend, Kits, who has been hospitalized with treatment-resistant cancer. Peggy, we are thinking of you and of your friend. I'm sorry to hear that. Bob Bunting shares that he is blessed with getting to spend time with extended family from Venezuela. That's exciting, to the Philippines, and in between over the past several weeks, celebrating life events. Oh, it's so wonderful to get family from far-flung places together. It's wonderful, Bob. Julie Olson shares the joy to attend her daughter Laura's Master's of Education graduation and celebration Mother's Day with her son-in-law Laura's husband in Mason and his mother, his son-in-law Mason and his mother. That's wonderful. To these family gatherings and celebrations, we give thanks for both. It's wonderful. I invite you into a communion of prayer and meditation as we hold all of this in our hearts and minds, as well as that which we hold in the sanctuary of our hearts. Spirit of life and of love, in all ways known and named. We hold the joy and the triumph, the tales of reunion, of remembrance. We hold all of these in our hearts, as well as the spirit of memorial and mourning that filled this sanctuary yesterday. We hold the Ewers family close as they mourn. May this day be filled with new learning, with uplift, with joy. May we be reminded of that which connects us to each other and to the wider world in our welcoming, caring, and justice-seeking mission. We give thanks for this day and all this day will bring. We give thanks and say amen. We will close this circle by singing How Can I Keep From Singing, known in our hymnal strangely as My Life Flows On in Endless Song. Let's join our voices. The reading this morning is a prose poem called Gate A4, and it is by Naomi Shahib Nye. Wandering around the Albuquerque airport terminal, after learning my flight had been delayed 4 hours, I heard an announcement. If anyone in the vicinity of Gate A4 understands any Arabic, please come to the gate immediately. Well, one pauses these days. Gate A4 was my own gate. I went there. An older woman in full traditional Palestinian embroidered dress, just like my grandma wore, was crumpled to the floor, wailing. "Help," said the flight agent. "Talk to her. What is her problem? We told her the flight was going to be late and she did this." I stooped to put my arm around the woman and spoke haltingly. "Shuda'au shudbid'ak abit, stani shawe min fadlik shubi siwe." The minute she heard any words she knew, however poorly used, she stopped crying. She thought the flight had been canceled entirely. She needed to be in El Paso for major medical treatment the next day. I said, no, we're fine. You'll get there, just later. Who is picking you up? Let's call them. We called her son. I spoke with him in English. I told him I would stay with his mother till we got on the plane and ride next to her. She talked to him. Then we called her other sons, just for the fun of it. Then we called my dad, and he and she spoke for a while in Arabic and found out, of course, they had 10 shared friends. Then I thought, just for the heck of it, why not call some Palestinian poets I know and let them chat with her? This all took 2 hours. She was laughing a lot by then, telling of her life, patting my knee, answering questions. She had pulled a sack of homemade mamul cookies, little powdered sugar crumbly mounds stuffed with dates and nuts from her bag, and was offering them to all the women at the gate. To my amazement, not a single woman declined one. It was like a sacrament. The traveler from Argentina, the mom from California, the lovely woman from Laredo, we were all covered with the same powdered sugar and smiling. There is no better cookie. And then the airline broke out free apple juice from huge coolers, and 2 little girls from our flight ran around serving it, and they were covered with powdered sugar too. And I noticed my new best friend, by now we were holding hands, had a potted plant poking out of her bag, some medicinal thing, with green furry leaves, such an old country tradition. Always carry a plant. Always stay rooted to somewhere. That lands really differently now, doesn't it? And I looked around that gate, of late and weary ones, and I thought, this is the world I want to live in. The shared world. Not a single person in that gate, once the crying confusion stopped, seemed apprehensive about any other person. They took the cookies. I wanted to hug all those other women too. This can still happen anywhere. Not everything is lost. So ends the reading.
Imagine that there are some prisoners who've been chained for as long as they can remember, chained together in a cave. And they're chained in such a way that the only thing that they can see is the back wall of the cave. And every morning when the sun comes up and shines into the cave, shadows appear on that back wall. The shadows of people and animals and objects go by the mouth of that cave. And these prisoners have gotten very good at being able to identify the different shadows. Oh, look, there's that small dog again. Oh, look, there's an older woman, and she seems to be carrying some sort of chair of some sort. And then one day, one of these prisoners is released. He's unchained, he's dragged up to the mouth of the cave, and he's left there. And at first, the light is just too bright. It's too strong for him to understand. It's too bright for him to be able to see anything. But slowly, his eyes begin to adjust to the light. And he's able to see, well, the real world. The world that's outside of the cave. And as he lies there, a dog comes by and it sniffs his hand and gives his hand a lick. And he's able to reach out and to touch the dog, to feel the dog's fur and its wet nose. And then he sees the elderly woman. And she's carrying a chair. And then after a few days of sitting out there in the sunshine, being out there in the light, he starts to realize the connection. That the figures that he's seeing in the real world are the figures that he had been seeing only the shadows of before. And he had a realization. The shadows that he and his comrades had been seeing on the wall weren't real. They were just shadows. And now he feels like he needs to go and see his old comrades and tell them this news about the difference between the real world and this world of shadows which they've been living in. So he goes back to the cave. And he sees his old comrades and he tells them what he's seen outside the cave. And at first they think he's crazy. They laugh at him and they ask if he can. He's been out so long that he said, well, decipher the shadows that are going by. But it's been so long he can't really decipher them anymore. But he keeps trying to tell them about what it was that he's seen. And they don't like it, because now they think that he's making fun of them. And they get upset. And they get angry. And they shove him, and some even get violent with him, because they don't like his vision and version of reality. Now, as I'm sure all of you have figured out, this is Plato's story of the cave. And Plato told this story for two reasons. First, to tell and to say that how difficult it is to be a philosopher trying to educate the public. And second, to point out his idea about ideal forms. Plato said that most people are comfortable in their ignorance, and that some may even be hostile to anyone who points that out. Socrates, his mentor and friend, have been sentenced to death by the Athenian government for disrupting social order. It's hard not to think of those prisoners violently resisting this truth and not think of everything that happened on January 6th, 4 years ago. When they were told that they were living in a world of shadows. Many years ago, I belonged to an online chat group of clergy. And on this chat group were hundreds and hundreds of clergy, different faiths, different ages, abilities, races, different classes, different expressions of gender. However, this chat group tended to be dominated by a group of older white guys. Guys who were even older and whiter than me. And no matter what happened in this group, people would often, come on and they'd ask for advice, or they'd sort of say, oh, this thing just happened at my church. But no matter what happened, whatever was written about, what questions were asked, these same set of older white guys tended to steer the conversation back to being about them. And it's not surprising that folks got frustrated with them. And when people got frustrated with them, these guys would then say, well, why are you attacking us? Which, of course, made everyone even angrier and more upset with these people. And people would say, I'm leaving the group, and all these sort of things. Well, after one of these big blowouts, a friend of mine got on this chat group, and in a very simple way for everyone to understand, he began to write about Copernicus. Now, I know that many of you are thinking to yourselves, Hank, on this lovely spring morning, you've already spoken to us about Plato and now about Copernicus? Yes. Yes, it's true. Hank, stick with me. Stick with me. So Copernicus, as you all remember, was that 15th century astronomer and mathematician. And it was he who realized that the Earth was not the center of the universe. Right? Up until that time, at least in the West, people had assumed that the Earth was the center of the universe, and everything revolved around us. The sun, the stars, the moon, everything. Then Copernicus came and said, the sun is not the center of the universe. The Earth revolves around the sun. And then a few decades later, another astronomer named Bruno came by and he said, nope, you know what? The sun itself was only one star among an infinite number of universes, and none of it has a center. For pre-Copernican people who knew the Earth was the center of the universe, it must have been really frustrating to interact with others who related to the actual infinite universe, in which there is no center. These days, pre-Copernican white men continue to roam the earth, seeing their perspective as objective, their priorities as normal, their needs as primary. It feels good to be the center of the universe. Almost all the institutions, the policies, even the dictionaries that most of us grew up with held up a guiding fiction. In a generous moment, one of these pre-Copernican men on this chat group would entertain the perspective of, say, an African-American woman, but only if her opinion orbits, accepts, and affirms the centrality of the truth that is his perspective. Here's a list of some of the world's fastest growing cities: Fuzhou, Ankara, Xiamen, Hangzhou, Kunming, Dubai, Bursa, Istanbul. What all of these cities, these centers of vitality, have in common is that none of them are driven by a pre-Copernican white man's perspective. None of those cities are the fruit of the Enlightenment, or even a reaction to it. So the pre-Copernican white man who insists that his perspective is the objective truth is not only inaccurate, it's also increasingly absurd. And I say this as someone who grew up. I grew up being told that this is the world that you will know, or this is the world that you will take over. But the world changes. Truth comes out. Things change. And still, when pre-Copernican folk are challenged, they speak louder and with bravado, trying to snare us back into their pre-Copernican orbit of Earth. They want us to believe that the shadows on the wall are real, that the universe revolves around them, that the January 6th insurrection was led by Antifa, that vaccines don't work, that there are good people on both sides of a white supremacist rally. Now, the second reason why Plato told that story of the caves was to explain his concept about ideal forms. Like the shadows on the wall, things in the physical world are flawed reflections of ideal forms. Plato believed that everything in the real world was just a mere shadow of an ultimate ideal form. So, of the footstools, like all the footstools we saw this morning, we could see that they were all different. And yet, there was something footstoolish about it, right? If we were able to print out, when I first said footstools, if you hadn't seen those footstools, if you just thought of a footstool and we were somehow able to print out that image up onto the screen and we ran them, there'd be something footstoolish about all of them. No matter how many legs they had, no matter what kind of covering or coloring they were. Plato theorized that there must be an ultimate footstool someplace that all other footstools are based upon. The theologians who came after Plato loved this idea. And they extended this idea not just to physical things, like footstools, but emotions and values. So thus there must be an ultimate form of truth someplace, an ultimate form of love somewhere. And then Christian theologians came along and they went, yes, and it is God who is the one. God is the great keeper of all of these ultimate ideals. It is God who is the ultimate form of love. It is God who knows the ultimate form of truth. God is the great librarian and keeper of all of these ideal forms. Now, how this influences us as Unitarian Universalists is the idea that only God has all of that truth. So that every one of us knows part of the truth, but none of us know all of the truth. And this realization keeps us both hungry and humble. What this teaches us as Unitarian Universalists is that we all have a part of the truth, but no one has all of the truth. So this should leave us hungry to go out and find out more truth, but also humble, knowing that we will never get to know everything. And it was this understanding that allowed the transcendentalists to explore other religious traditions and realize, I love this phrase, that revelation is not sealed. That the truth that came from the divine did not just happen to one group of people in one place at one time, but that it's ongoing. And that truth and wisdom can come from other people. That words and values from other traditions can inform our own, and that we should be open to them. I had a professor in seminary who was teaching us, it was a class on Buddhism. And he had us reading a whole bunch of really, really different styles of really different books and readings about Buddhism. The first one was the Diamond Sutra. And it was so difficult to understand. In fact, I said to someone like, is it called the Diamond Sutra because it's so hard to understand? And then the next week, he had us read about a Buddhist monk who rode a motorcycle. And then the next week, we read something that didn't seem very Buddhist at all. And after 3 weeks or 4 weeks, a bunch of us finally raised our hands and sort of said, why do you have us reading all of these different texts? They don't seem to really hang together. And he said, if I taught Buddhism the way people often teach Christianity, I would teach you about the life of the Buddha and maybe a couple of 100 years of history after his death. And then you'd go out into the world and you'd interact with real Buddhists and you'd say, well, this is nothing about what I learned in this class. No one seems to practice the Buddhism that happened 3,000 years ago. And then he used an illusion, which I use it all the time, but you're only going to hear it once. But it stayed with me all these years. He said, it's like looking in one of those little glass prisms, that we hang in our windows, which cast rainbows on the walls. He said, every time you read one of these books, a new window is opened. And by looking in at all of these different windows and more different windows, you're able to gain a better understanding of what is at the center of Buddhism. As Unitarian Universalists, we think about the Platonic concept of ideal forms a bit differently. We acknowledge that no one has all the truth about the sacred or God. We don't believe that any one person or group has all the truth about religion. Some may have studied more, reflected more, experienced more, and all of those things get to be brought in and shared, and the whole becomes richer from it. This is the basis of all Unitarian Universalist theology. This is how you can have someone who is a Christian and someone who is a Buddhist and someone who is a humanist not only sit together in the same church, but drive home together in the same car. This understanding that every one of us holds a little bit of the truth allows us to have the theological diversity that we prize, because it allows us to continue on the journey to gather more information together, to get closer to what the truth may actually be. If any of you have ever partaken in a small group experience, it is so great. I mean, I'm sure there's readings, there's something that you wanted to study, but you also get to sit there and you get to share your life. And then a new person will join the group. And then you get to share your life with that new person. But in the time from when you first shared your life to when that new person came in, your life has changed. Maybe when the group started, you were the recently widowed, or you were the person whose partner was dying. And now you are the person who has maybe not healed completely, but who has moved on. You were the person who was the cancer patient, and now you are a person who is a survivor. We are on a journey, and our lives are part of this, and we get to bring in our experience. The great Ralph Waldo Emerson, in one of his most famous sermons, he said, acquaint thyself at first hand with the divine. Don't just believe what someone else tells you it should be. Go out and experience it in the world. Go out and experience the sacred. Find it in the world and realize that you are on a journey. Your community's on a journey. We are all on a journey, and we are moving forward, and we're trying to move forward, and we move back, and we try to move forward some more. That is one of the beauties of our faith, is that we get to sort of say, this is the truth as I know it right now. And when new things come in, we can include them, and it changes us, and it's beautiful. It's beautiful. When I think about that reading, I love that reading. It's a great reading. And I think of the older woman who was crying, and the airline staff who were frustrated because they could not understand each other. Maybe this is the role of our faith. Maybe this is the role that our faith can be in the world, is to help those whose understandings of the world and the universe
are different. And we can bring them together with compassion. We can bring them into circles. We can help them to share their stories with each other, to gain a little knowledge of this other people's experience of the world, other understandings of the world. And then we all get cookies. This is the world I want to live in, the shared world. And I bet it is a world that you want to live in as well. This can still happen anywhere. Not everything is lost. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, thank you. Thank you so much, Hank, my dear friend. Thank you so much. Let us enter into a communion of silence and hold close both the truths of our faith, those that emerge, those that last, and all of the ways that we may make this world a better place. Today is our Good Neighbor offering, the Sunday when we give all of the money that we share away. I love this Sunday. This month is Mental Health Awareness Month, and so the board made the decision for this, for the beneficiary to be Outreach. Some of you are more familiar with Outreach than others, but they're a great organization. The home of the Second Step players who perform and teach and entertain as they do. So let us speak these words together. We give to the work of Outreach. To be good neighbors, we support work that creates the greater good. With this offering, we remember to extend our reach beyond these walls. The offering will be gratefully received. For all that you have given and all that you have shared, thank you. Thank you. And I forgot to say, and Judy, you reminded me, if you have pasta, if you remember to bring pasta for food to the people, just bring it up after the service, that's fine. We are going to close by joining our voices and singing sing out praises for the journey, I invite you to rise in body and or in spirit to do so. We are leaving the chalice lit for the annual meeting, so we will move right to the benediction. Those of you in the online pews, I invite you to hold your hearts and reach out to the world beyond your screens, and those here within Unity Hall, please reach out, open your hearts to the world beyond as well. Hank.
The task has ended. Go in pieces. Our faith has been rear-ended, certainty amended, and something might be mended that we didn't know was torn. And we are fire, bright burning fire, turning from a higher place from which we fell, emptying ourselves into the hell in which we'll find our loving brother, mother, sibling, friend. And so, friends, our task has ended. Go in pieces and feel your world. Amen.
Amen. Amen. I invite you to be seated for the postlude. a new way will never be the same for me, Carrie. That was beautiful. That was beautiful. Couple of announcements before we do some changeover from this to our annual meeting. So the annual meeting begins right after the service. If you are a member of the congregation, you haven't registered yet, you can do so. Do you still need to go? Oh, right. Katrina is right here. She's waving to you. Register with her. We're just going to begin in just a couple of minutes. So maybe grab a cup of coffee and come back quickly. I'm going to try to go quickly. This Thursday is Elder Journey at noon in the community room. Those of you who are 65 and beyond, come with a bagged lunch. Dessert is served, and it's a fun afternoon. I hope you'll come. I'm preaching next week. The sharing circles for caregivers is going to be next week after the service. Picking up stones, this is really important. An American Jew wakes up to a nightmare. We are hosting this important one-woman performance. I hope that you will make time to come and be part not only of experiencing the performance, but also I am facilitating a conversation after the performance, which I think is going to be as important as the performance itself. So please buy your tickets, and we'll see you on June 1st. And then we are hosting on May 21st, which is Tuesday, right? Tuesday. The Veterans for Peace Walk for Peace from Norwich to Groton is going to land here at 6 o'clock on Tuesday night. Everyone is invited for that gathering and conversation. I hope that you will make time to do that as well. I think that is everything. So we'll see you in a couple of minutes. Hank, thank you once again for being with us. All right. That was a very effective bell ringing.
Thank you, Jesse.
And thank you, Jesse. It was Jesse that rang that bell. Good job, Jess.
What do we do the rules of order after this, before this?
Yeah. Good morning. My name is Karen Ethia Waring, and I have been serving as board president for the last almost 2 years now. Thank you. Thank you. It's been an honor, and it's been lovely. So this morning, we're gathering to do the work of a congregation that began with the New London Universalists in 1835 and continued with a merger of the Unitarian Society of New London and First Universalist Society in 1907, well before the national merger of Unitarian Universalism in 1961. If you want more details on our history, this came from a piece written by Clara Vento and another piece by Bill Herman that is on our website. So let us begin with a prayer. In the spirit of our forebearers, may we enter into the work of the congregation, boldly upholding our shared history and values. May we approach the historic decisions we make today with humble spirits, acknowledging that truth is a many-faceted thing, somehow different in each person's eye. May we listen mindfully, supporting each other's free and responsible search for truth and meaning, no matter how large the differences. May we speak from the combined wisdom of our minds and hearts. May we joyfully complete the business we've come to address. In the spirit of this beloved community, joined here, may we continue to create a strong foundation for our children and generations to come. Amen. And so I call the meeting to order. We were already in order, but officially. Oh, yeah. Katrina, do we have a quorum today?
We have 103, and I believe 50 members is a quorum.
Great, thank you. Jesse, I'd like the first slide, please. So I'm calling your attention to the slide with a revised agenda. There is no new business on this agenda. However, as we were thinking through the meeting, we realized that there were some things that were not ordered in a way that would facilitate the work as well as it might. So I'd like you to look at the agenda, the shifts, and if I hear no objections, we will proceed with this agenda. All right, hearing no objections, we'll continue. We have a lot of work to do today, and so we wanted to make sure that folks were ready to participate, and so we're going to review the democratic rules of order with you. These are like Robert's rules, maybe a little bit simpler, is how we will conduct our meeting. There was a handout that you might have picked up on the way in. So, the first thing we just want you to be aware of is that the business will be conducted with motions. All decisions are made with motions. The motions will be, or the suggested motions will be on slides. Before a motion can be considered, it must be seconded by another member. A new motion can't be made
until the motion on the floor has been withdrawn or voted on, although they can be amended by another motion. And that's my part. And then Paul.
Mover's privilege. So after someone makes a motion during the discussion or any time before it's voted on, the person who made the motion can move to change the motion or withdraw the motion. That's called mover's privilege. Just the other piece on amendments. We're obviously not reading everything from the pamphlet, but we've highlighted a number of items that we thought would be important to have. As Karen indicated, an amendment may be made to delete, substitute, or add words that would modify an original motion. Delete, substitute, or add words that will modify an original motion, but it must not negate or change the intent of the motion. The amendment, when accepted by the chair and seconded, immediately becomes a new motion on the floor. So if there's a motion on the floor, then somebody during the discussion makes a motion to amend that original motion, it's seconded, that's discussed at that point. After that discussion is finished, there's a vote on the amendment. If the amendment passes, then that becomes part of the original motion. Okay, if we get to that point, we'll go through that again if necessary. If the amendment passes, I just said that. The secretary will read the newly amended previous motion, which is now the new motion on the floor, and voted on. If the amendment fails, the previous motion again becomes the motion on the floor.
Thank you. We will introduce our parliamentarian when we complete this. We have someone helping us. When a motion has been made and seconded, we will then open for discussion. All members have a right to speak once, at least once. We ask that folks be concise. Please don't return to the microphone until others have had a chance to speak. And Jesse, we will need a microphone. Oh, there we go. No, we're good. Excuse me. If someone has already made your point, please consider refraining from repeating that point just in terms of time, but be aware, please be aware that obviously everyone has a right to speak. So I want to be clear about that. When it appears that we've made, that the discussion is completed, the chair will call, myself will call for a vote and we'll reread the motion.
Point of order.
Yeah.
There's a section in the Democratic Rules of Order called point of order. If at any time during the motions or seconds or discussion, if somebody, a member believes that the Democratic Rules of Order are not being properly followed, at any time they can say, Madam Chair, point of order. The chair should immediately acknowledge this member, who should then briefly explain why he or she believes the good order is being breached. The chair then rules on that point, either correcting the situation or explaining why it is in order, or may defer to the parliamentarian for ruling on that.
Great, thank you. Some of our votes will require careful counting, so when we do vote, we'll ask that folks hold up their cards and just make sure that, you know, your vote's been counted before putting them down. All right, and Danny Spur, who is a member of our board, will serve as parliamentarian today, so if you would stand up. What that means is if we get lost in the process, Danny will help us, as will Charlie Schott. So we can pause. If we get lost in process, we'll just pause, take a breath, and figure it out, and keep going. Thank you, Paul. All right. This has been an amazingly busy and lovely year at All Souls. We have a new community room that looks like it's been there forever. There's been a lot of work that's visible like that and other work that's happened behind the scenes. And so I'm going to invite our president-elect to come up, or our nominated president to come up and recognize our volunteers for the past year.
A pleasant task to have. I'm going to go through and call the names, and if you would kindly stand, and let's hold the applause till the end. Now, this list is a small representation of the dozens and dozens of members that volunteer, that do the work of All Souls. Also on Faith Formation Sunday, we're also going to honor the over 40 members who teach in our Faith Formation classes. So to start with, thank you to all of the volunteers from all of us for your time, your effort, your dedication in keeping All Souls running. There will be a donation to the New London Community Meal Center in honor of all of our All Souls volunteers. So let me go through the names. Finance Committee, chaired by John Betcher. Stewardship Committee by Susan Bourget. I hope I didn't. Bourget? Close.
Do you want people to remain standing?
Yes.
That would be nice. That would be. Actually, some of you are called more than once, and we don't want to have you get up and down. So.
Sorry, John, first person called.
Nominated Leadership Committee by Kathy Smith Caroline. Building Team, by our amazing Katrina Burkow.
Just the chair she was standing, not the members.
Go ahead, stand up. Bylaws Committee, Jan Larson, Linda Sargent, Jonathan Town, Lynn Tavramina, and Jan for their work on communications. Our Good Works Gardening Team, which is coordinated by Carol Bunting. Good Works Community Meals Team, coordinated by Carol Irwin. Greeters and observers at our services, coordinated by Karen Jones, Joyce Worden, Paul Schaefer. Green Sanctuary Committee, chaired by Jonathan Harger. Growth Through Service, Eileen Ego. Hospitality team led by Janet Meralda. Outreach chaired by Jenny Campbell. Membership, Alex Clancy. Facilities team, Steve Batt. Safety team, Karen Jones. Sharing Circles, coordinated by Carol Cassidy, Susan Coulter-Carey, and Carol Irwin. Denominational Affairs, Bob Bunting. Friday Night Folk, wonderful group, but coordinated by Nick Avento. Technology team, also by John Betcher. Susan Beebe, the leader of the tag team leader of the tag sale team. And I must say, the most delicious fundraising event goes to that wonderful group labeled the Italian Sisters. And last but not least, the Sailfest parking team. So big hand. Next slide. Now, there are a group that we're going to call out for their unique efforts. Janet Meralda. She single-handedly dismantled the old kitchen, helped planning the new kitchen, set up a temporary kitchen in the Nash room, set up the new kitchen, met with the health department when they were here for the inspection, and then printed labels for every drawer in every cabinet. And she did that twice. So the second set was even more readable than the first. So wonderful job. John Betcher. He chairs the finance committee and the tech team. And as all of us on the board will acknowledge, he provides really thoughtful counsel and detailed analyses as the finance committee's liaison with the board. And as you'll see later in the meeting, John has also been a key contributor with the HVAC team. Vic Meralda and Sid Gardner. Now, these two gentlemen are constantly repairing, building, fixing, remodeling, and enhancing the various aspects of our facility, and both have been key members of the HVAC team. And Sid designed and built our amazing and beautiful adjustable height motorized pulpit. Becky Noreen and Steve Batt, they stepped in and teamed up together to lead our choir as we search for a new director. And I can speak as a member of the choir that we very much appreciate their dedication and service to the choir. Before we continue, I'd like...
No, you're giving out those kids. Yeah, come on up. All the
Come on up.
heroes, come on up.
Those who are named and are here, please come on up. We just have a little something, just a token, and so everyone can see your faces and just say thank you. The unsung heroes, yeah. Thank you. Well done. Yeah.
And before all of the thanks and accolades are offered, I would like to do so in deep thanksgiving for our outgoing president, Karen Ethier-Waring. I have always thought, and I've always had faith, that every president who steps into that position is the absolute right president for that position, for that moment in time. And every one of you here who has served as president, you know, I hope you know, I know that that is true. That has certainly been true for Karen. There have been a myriad of issues and challenges and celebrations that have happened under her watch. And she has handled every single one of them with grace, with care, with incredible analysis, with calm, and that is particularly important in these times when the world is as dysregulated as it is, and we don't want to mirror that within the walls of this congregation and certainly within the walls of our hearts. So Karen brings, of course, her great skills as a therapist, as a musician, an artist, and her beautiful heart and care for this congregation, her dedication and devotion to this congregation, to every task. And so the board will be celebrating Karen at their June meeting, and I will be taking her out for lunch in June as well. But I know that you wanted and appreciate the opportunity to thank her warmly and from the depths of your heart as well. So thank you, Karen, for making it look so easy. Can I put on my mask and hug you? Okay. Thank you so much.
It's embarrassing. Thank you. Just say thank you. Says the minister, just say thank you. All right. So, our next order of business is to approve the minutes from last year, and we actually had 2 congregational meetings last year. So you will find the minutes from our May 22nd meeting at the start of our, the draft minutes, page 5 through 7 of our annual report. And we had almost forgotten, but we thank you very much. We did not. At the very end of the annual report are the minutes from our October 22nd meeting. So take a look if you haven't already. May I have a motion to accept the minutes?
So moved.
Thank you, Charlie. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Maria. Excuse me. Any discussion or corrections? Then I'll call the vote. All in favor? Okay. Opposed? Looks like that passes unanimously. Lovely. Thank you. The budget that you have before you, so we will move, thank you, it is on page 16 in the annual report. It was put together with the Finance Committee and your input during and around the budget hearings last month. The Board of Trustees has reviewed and approved this budget, and now I'd like to introduce Janet Beebe, our very hardworking and cheerful treasurer, who will give you her report and talk about the budget.
Is it still morning? Yes. Good morning. Good morning. Okay. So on page 16 is the full detailed proposed budget and also last year's approved budget for comparison. Up on the screen are some points that I would like to call to your attention. So the Stewardship Committee did another amazing job this year on the 24-25 pledge campaign. We have pledges of $439,150, which is a 6% increase from the pledges of last year. We will no longer be using from our shares in the oil wells for any money from our shares from the oil wells for our operating account. We inherited these shares in the oil wells in the 1950s, and in 1975 we did try to divest but were unable to sell them. And again tried in the last few years, and still we have no hope of being successful. So we have decided that we will use any of the income received, and we will do that towards some green initiatives. It will be saved for that. Okay, so staff salaries. So most of the staff salaries were increased by 2% this year. Childcare and the custodian were increased by 50 cents. So that was from $16 an hour to $16.50. And the office and admin was increased by $1.40 an hour. And the director of faith formation was increased by $3,000 for the year. This will bring them in line with the UUA guidelines. Staff professional expenses were increased by $2,500 this year. We are greatly under-supporting our staff in this area and hope to be able to continue to increase this budget item in the future. Staff health insurance increased by $3,000 this year. There will be, we've been informed, there will be a 12.5% increase in health insurance. We did not increase our UUA contribution this year, but we will do a dedicated offering for one of the Sundays to help support this item, which is very important. So, and most important, the bottom line, we have a balanced budget. And I am really proud of that. Okay, so, as Karen said, both the Finance Committee and the Board of Trustees have given their support to this proposed budget. I am asking the congregation to approve the 24-25 proposed budget as presented. I believe it is a good and comprehensive budget that will help us to continue our mission and look to the future. So thank you, and I will give it to Karen.
Just stick around.
Okay.
Thank you. So do I have a motion from the floor to approve the budget? Bill, thank you. And seconded, Nick Evento. The floor is open for discussion. If you can, please come up to the mic, but if that's difficult, Sally is also available here to bring the mic to you.
I've spoken this. Okay, I've spoken about this before, and I'll say it again. We used to provide the full funding to the UUA. I support the budget, but I still think we need to work on doing the full support.
Thank you.
Hi, I was just going to ask, where on the budget do I see what we ever have apportioned for the UUA? What line item is that?
See, it's way at the bottom.
Bottom of page 17 or 18?
18, and it is 8590.1.
Say it again, I'm sorry.
8590.1, and it says UUA.
Oh, okay. All right. And what percentage of what was asked of us is that?
About half.
About half of what was requested. So I'll just say ditto to what Jonathan had to say.
Okay. Other questions, comments? No? And I'll call the vote. All in favor? Opposed? Passes unanimous. Oh, opposed, one, sorry. Did you get that, Melanie? Thank you. Thank you, Janet. Janet, bravo. Our Leadership and Development Committee works hard to fill the many leadership positions needed to keep All Souls running. They have been creative and diligent in matching members to positions. And I would like to ask Kathy Smith-Carolan, who's been the chair of that committee, where's Kathy, there she is, to come up and introduce us to the slate and talk a little bit about it.
Well, we're right at the cusp of noon, so good afternoon. At this time, I'd like to introduce those who are nominated for the 24-25 leadership slate. I'll start with the Board of Trustees. I'd like you to stand and remain standing so you can be seen as that important group of people. For next year, nominated for president is Charlie Schott. Vice President is Paul Carolyn. Continuing, Secretary Melanie Elliott, and Treasurer Janet Beebe. At-large members, Eileen Ego, Rebecca Grabner, John Pappas, Linda Sargent, and Danny Spur. This is the nominated Board of Trustees for next year. And if you'd remain standing while we get the other leadership folks here, you can be seen as the greater group. For board committee chairs, Facilities, Steve Batt. Finance, John Betcher. Membership, Alex Clancy. And Stewardship, Mike Ritz.
Nominating leadership.
Right. And nominating and leadership development team. I will be leading the team after serving for 3 years. We will have co-chairs for next year, Alexis Capon and Lisa Ritz, as well as Michelle Ewers, Mary Drake, Sally McGee, and Axel Westerberg. So we have a good percentage of you here today. This is the nominated leadership team for next year. And I will make the motion to please accept this leadership slate.
Thank you, Kathy. Is there a second? And I think folks can sit. Thank you very much. Is there a second on the floor? Okay. Oh my gosh, I'm doing it. Chris, I'm so sorry. Drew a blank. All right. All in favor? Thank you. Opposed? All right, passes unanimously. Thank you very much, and thank you to next year's folks. All right. Oh. Chris Cluett, thank you. Having a name thing. So those of you who were on the Zoom meeting on Monday heard about some details about the HVAC system. This is the first big decision on our agenda today. John Betcher is going to talk to us about our HVAC system. Thank you, John.
Thank you. So as many of you know, we have one of our HVAC units out at the moment. It's the office area one. We have a total of 3 units that serve the building here. With that unit out, in the age of the current units, we put together a team, a cross-functional team of finance, facilities, and the board to look at what we ought to do about having that unit out. We have the option to fix the one that is not working or to replace the units. Given the age, given the cost, given the use of gas, we use about $8,000 worth of natural gas each year. We decided to replace the units, that we would propose replacing the units. And in doing so, we looked at an option of replacing with heat pumps. Heat pumps take energy from places that you wouldn't normally consider have energy and turn it into heating or cooling. We looked at either air-sourced heat pumps or ground-sourced heat pumps. Air-sourced heat pumps takes energy out of the air, ground-sourced takes it out of the ground. Jesse, new slide, please. After going through those options, we decided not to recommend for the ground source heat pump. There are significant engineering issues that need to be addressed as part of the installation of geothermal heat. There's also a much higher cost associated with those units. It's a very, with the cost comes more debt considerations and finally incentives associated with geothermal might be at political risk, where some of the federal incentives might get defunded if the administration changes this year. Finally, there is the impact on Phase 2 project. Both of the ground source and the air source projects will impact Phase 2. The impact with the ground source heat pumps would be much larger. So what we are recommending, and it's been unanimous from the team itself, from finance and from the board, to recommend replacing the units with air source heat pumps and get a contractor to do that work. There is a motion associated with this. To do the work, we would be taking a loan to finance the aspects of the work. This is a little bit more complicated than much of the work that we do here, in that any rebates or incentives that we get for the project won't be available to us until after the project is done and we have paid the contractor. So we need to borrow money not only to pay for the contractor, but to also pay for the portion that would be rebated later on. So we're asking the congregation to approve us moving forward with air source heat pumps and a cap of financing of $150,000. That's a higher cap, and that's simply to make sure that we don't have to come back to the congregation to get a new approval.
So I will ask for a motion in a second. So Susan, in a second? Okay, I'm really having a name problem. Tell me. Sue Franklin, I'm sorry. I'm just having a name thing.
I'm sorry,
Susan Zimmerman. That's all right. I know, and Sue Franklin, yes, thank you. And now we'll open it for discussion. Again, please come to the microphone if you have questions or comments, and Sally will bring the microphone if that's easier as well. She's available for that. So raise your hand if you need the mic to come to you.
Hi, Scott Waring. What might have gotten lost, I want to offer that the air-sourced heat pump system is a much greener heat source system than we have currently. It may not be the greenest, but it is moving in the right direction. I just wanted to offer that.
Thank you.
Tina Dubosc. We have one of these systems at home. We love it. I think there are a number of members here who have this system in their house, one manufacturer or the other. My question is, $150,000 seems to me low if you're buying all of these units for this building. I mean, there's a lot of places that need to be heated and cooled, and then plus the contractor's fee. So I just am wondering about that $150,000, if it shouldn't be higher.
So, should I? Hold on. Thank you, Carol. That's an amount that, given the quotes we have in hand so far, we think that we can do the project. It also includes, we are taking some money from the Resilience Fund and from our balance to pay some money up front. So it also accounts for that. Between the rebates that we get, which will be significant, we're looking at rebates for our project for the air source heat pumps, $48,000 from the state. So all of that adds up to a circumstance where, yes, I think you're right. We were staring at a replacement for the natural gas systems. Jonathan Harger had gotten us a quote, and it was $200,000.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Just a real quick question. If we do approve it, how quickly can we get it done? Can we get it done before the election, or
so we have a much more aggressive timeline for a much more important purpose. Carolyn will probably, well, I don't know what you'll do, but if we don't have heat October 1st, I think we're going to know about it. So just put it that way.
I have a question about the $150,000. Have we considered looking internally for a loan rather than looking externally?
So we would prefer not to take loans from within the congregation. We're currently looking at loans that are a percentage rate that are very nice. This is based on programs that are in place for energy systems. The current loan, and I was just on phone with people on Friday, walking through the exact process to get it, would be about 3%. So that's fitting very much in terms of pretty much the inflation rate that we're currently seeing. Perhaps if we see that we don't bring in a vendor with the costs that we are seeing right now, maybe we might consider that to keep the loan costs down. But right now, I don't think we need to do that.
All right. With no further comments or questions, I'll call the vote. All in favor? Just hold them up and keep them up. Thank you. All opposed? All opposed? Can I see that again? No. All right. It passes unanimously. Thank you very much, John and the HVAC team. I'm going to invite Paul up to talk about our next order of business. And we'll need, oh.
Yes.
Oh, yep, okay. There we are. Thanks, Paul.
Okay, approval of the slate of delegates to the UU General Assembly. Each year, we send a number of delegates to the Unitarian Universalist General Assembly. This year, we're honored to have 5 delegates who have volunteered to participate online for this General Assembly. I believe only 2 of the 5 are here. So when I read your name, please stand up so we can acknowledge and thank you for your willingness to participate. I know Bob Bunting and Carol Bunting are traveling, I believe, today. David Burnside, was he here today? He's in Spain. Traveling. Suzanne Colton-Carey. Is Suzanne, yep, Suzanne, and Danny Spur. Let's thank them for joining us. Can I have a motion from the floor to approve this slate of delegates for the General Assembly in July 2024? Nick Avento is moved. Can I have a second? I'll put my glasses on so I can see. Ginny Campbell has seconded. Any discussion regarding this slate of candidates?
Tina Dubosc. Last year we talked about having reporting done on the GA from the people who are our representatives. I hope that's being carried through, and there's some method of reporting being constructed so we can get a report.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think we have discussed this as a board. I'm not recalling whether that's been sent out as information, but we'll make sure it's on our next board agenda.
And it was in the minutes from last year.
Yes,
Yeah.
but we'll make sure we report that out after our next meeting. So that'll be added to the agenda. Michelle, or Melanie, sorry. Okay, our next item also has to do with the delegates. Oh, I'm sorry, I jumped right ahead. We have a motion was made and seconded. All in favor, please raise your cards. All opposed regarding the 5 delegates? And it passes unanimously. Now, this is the approval of guidance to the delegates to the UU General Assembly. When delegates attend the General Assembly each year, we ask generally that they vote based on their conscience for new items that are presented at the General Assembly for a vote. This year, with the proposed revision for Article 2, which has been sent to all congregations for discussion and consideration, will be at the General Assembly for a final vote. So the All Souls Board has had in-depth discussions about whether and how to guide the delegates in their vote at the General Assembly based on the results of the number of votes from our congregation today in support of the article revisions and the number of votes against the revisions. Our considerations include considerations that we had as discussion as a board, including to let the delegates vote based on their conscience. Option 2 is to guide them to vote in full, either for or against the article revisions based on the majority result of today's vote, meaning that regardless, whatever the majority was, whether it's 60% or 51%, all 5 would vote in favor or against the articles. And option 3, to guide them to vote based on a percentage of the congregation voting today for or against Article 2 revisions. Can you go to the next slide, which shows the what that looks like? So basically, that's if we have 5 delegates, if 80% of the vote today is that they support the articles, then if only 80% or 50%, then it's 4 delegates would vote for and 1 delegate would vote against. Likewise, if 80% of the congregation votes against Article 2 and 20% vote for, then it'd be 4 delegates voting at the UU Assembly against the Article 2 and 1 for. We also did, so if we look at the halfway between, for example, the 0 and 20%, then we rounded it. So if let's say 9 folks voted for the Article 2 and 91 voted against, well, the 9, it would still be 0 delegates because it's not at least half of that 20%, if that makes sense. Okay? So with that, so the board reviewed those and were strongly in favor as a board that we do it by proportion, which was the third option. So I'm asking for a motion from the floor to assign the delegates to vote at the UUA General Assembly based on a percentage of the congregation voting for and against Article 2. Is there a motion to support that? Sue Frankwitz moves. Is there a second for that motion?
A second.
Marie Bryce seconds the motion. Discussion on the motion.
Hi, I'm Cynthia Marion, born UU. So I have a couple questions. One involves, it is a longstanding tradition for the delegates to vote their conscience. That's my first question. My second question is, are our five delegates, would they be willing to go along with this motion and vote against their conscience if we are so asking them to?
Yeah.
So those are my two questions. Thank you.
Yes, such good questions. And yes, it is a long-standing tradition that our delegates vote their conscience. And we discussed this ahead of time with those who are delegates, and all were willing to represent the congregation given the momentous decision that's happening this year at the General Assembly.
Sue Frankwitz. We had a Zoom meeting, I think it was last Monday night, with like wrapping stuff up. And as I said in that meeting, and I said I'd be happy to repeat it here, I couldn't figure out why we would entertain any other method other than proportional voting, given what has happened in our democracy where we use an electoral college so that whatever the plurality is in a state could be 51-49, the whole state's delegates go there. We've ended up with a government that doesn't represent truly the will of the people, and why, given our long-term commitment enthroned or engraved in our 7 principles that our commitment to democracy, we would always choose the most democratic process. So, those are my
Thank you, Sue.
Hi, Danny Spur, serving as a delegate. And my understanding, too, is that this would guide us in voting up or down on Article 2, but there are some amendments. There are things that can change at Assembly, and delegates would have flexibility to adapt to that or vote their conscience in those aspects.
Yeah.
But in terms of the up and down, Article 2, that's where the guidance would be with this vote.
That's right. That's right. We can't know all that will happen at General Assembly, although we know that the language of Article 2 proposal will not change and that the amendments are decided, but it's only on the voting up or down on Article 2.
Hi, I'm Maria Peirce, and I've been a delegate a few times now, in person and online. And I have to say, this is the first General Assembly that I can think of that anyone has had so much interest in one of the key decisions that's going to be made. And I'm enthusiastic about this, and I can tell you that as a delegate in the past, I would have wholeheartedly and wholly appreciated the division of the vote based on how we voted at the meeting. It would have been a lot easier. I did vote my conscience each time, and I think that I have faith in our delegates to vote the way that we direct them to vote, and I really appreciate the sacrifice.
Thank you, Maria. All right. If no other discussion, then I will call the vote. Can we go back? Oh, we don't need to. We don't need to? All in favor? All in favor of assigning delegates to the UUA General Assembly based on the percentage of the congregation voting for or against Article 2 changes? Thank you. Opposed?
Passes unanimously. Thank you. Yeah. I am centering myself for our next one. Paul, thank you very much. Thanks to everyone who's helping make this meeting go so beautifully. So we are about to embark on our discussion and voting on the UUA proposed changes to the UUA bylaws of Article 2 of the UUA bylaws. The UUA Article 2 Study Commission was convened in the fall of 2020. And at last year's General Assembly voted to move forward with the proposed changes to Article 2. That meant they wanted us to continue. At General Assembly, it was decided that Unitarian Universalism would continue to consider these changes and come to 2024 ready to vote these changes in or not. At General Assembly, final approval of the proposed changes will require a 2/3 vote. Next slide, please. Over the past year, our congregation has been exploring the proposed changes to Article 2. It started with a really lovely presentation by the youth last March of 2023. We have had in-person Zoom sessions, and we've had Zoom sessions and in-person study sessions. Written summaries and materials have been provided. Informal conversations and personal research has been done and shared. And the worship team last summer decided that the themes for this year, for each month, would be centered around the Article 2 proposed change, the values language. Our board is in support of the proposed Article 2 revisions, and we are deeply respectful and aware that not everyone in our congregation is in support of those changes. And so we are gathered here today to talk about it and to vote. Next slide, please. So remember, we will have a motion, we will have discussion, we'll have a vote, and whatever other things, if there are amendments that come up during our discussion. So I'm looking for a motion from the floor to approve the proposed revisions to Article 2 of the Unitarian Universalist Association bylaws. Lexi Capon, thank you, and Maria Peirce, thank you. So I open the floor for discussion.
Maria Peirce again. I was at the General Assembly that we passed the motion to move this on. I voted my conscience after studying it before I got there, but then listening to a lot of people when I was there. I personally believe that this is the way to go forward. And if anybody has any question about it afterwards, come see me then. But I do wholeheartedly recommend this. But if it doesn't go through, I'm not going to be mean about it, you know?
Amen.
Mary Drake, I just have one question. Why are we discussing this now? We should have had this discussion. We should have had this discussion before it was brought up at the General Assembly last year. And we should have made our, those people who objected to it, should have made their objections made known at that point when the language could have been changed. It's basically set in stone now. We voted either up or down. Is that correct? Except for the amendments.
So correct. Well, so within our congregation, yes, will be represented proportionally.
Oh, no, but I mean at the general.
At General Assembly, yes, it will be voted up.
So it seems to me this discussion should have taken place at least 1 year ago.
Thank you, Mary.
We have a comment back here.
So, oh.
Just to clarify and respond to that, we did start the conversation more than a year ago in March of 2023 when Tricia Brenneman, our sabbatical minister, preached on it and the youth presented what it was. And then the following Friday, we had a Faith Friday, invited anyone who wanted to discuss it, and then put notices out that the UUA and the commission was having discussions, welcoming input from all UUs, and everybody was welcome to join those conversations. So that started before last year's General Assembly, and everyone had that invitation. And then we continued the conversation this year to further educate ourselves on what had happened at General Assembly and in preparation for this vote.
Thank you.
Hi. I just wanted to say that I've been living at the Martin House for about almost 20 years, and I believe this church has helped sponsor me there and other people also. And I'm getting a great deal out of that situation, of the learning experience there, the exposure, fear factors, learning education to, defuse anger, defuse pain, defuse sorrow, suffering, and make it more joyful and educational. They teach these classes up there, and arts and education and music and sciences, and it's opening my mind again. I was really shut down like under a hole for a while, and I believe this church, that mission to educate people and let them go on and continue and have dreams.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Other comments? Kyle?
Good afternoon, everybody. Don't let the note cards scare you. I'm just trying to keep track of what I feel like I need to say. I am in favor of voting for the revisions in Article 2, and here are the reasons why. The proposed values do not just talk about who we are, but who we can be. When John F. Kennedy dreamed about exploring the moon, he said, "We do not do things because they are easy. We do them because they are hard." The language of dismantling racism sounds really hard, but it is what people of color are asking us to bring forward. I'm embarrassed to say that until a week ago, I had not asked any person of color in this All Souls congregation how they felt about this language. One person shared with me that they weren't sure, but they appreciated being asked. In my opinion, this proposal is not about power, but empowerment. And although the proposed graphics are a little wonky, having love at the center of all we do is really the essence of who we are as UUs.
Thank you, Kyle.
Thank you, everyone who's spoken so far. Sue Frankowitz, I did a lot of thinking and reading and talking about this. I don't think it's an easy choice at all, actually. I appreciate the energy behind this proposal. But I have mixed feelings about what was produced. And a lot of people got together for a lot of hours in a lot of places and put a lot of energy into this. I think it's a very flawed project. And I'll tell you that the concept of putting love at the center, what does love mean? It's like the word God. It has so many potential meanings and connotations, denotations. Again, we end up in the space where anything could be interpreted, I guess. This is a loving act. It's going to hurt you really badly, but believe me, it's coming from love or whatever. There's just I feel really mixed about the language. I'm not impressed with the flower design at all, and I felt, when I first saw it, which was a year ago March, I felt infantilized by it. I didn't think it should be the work of, I don't know, it's just whatever, it's my personal take on it. I wish that we had entertained and worked hard to learn more about the proposed 8th Amendment. I think that would have been a way, not 8th Amendment, the 8th principle,
right,
to address this issue by adding it to the principles that we have been guided by through in my lifetime as a UU, which is a little under 30 years. So I wish that, I think I can't support it, I guess I would say. In the end, I'd like to leave it the way it is and let, whatever study group picks up in the future, keep working on this.
Thank you, Sue. Patrick, yeah.
Patrick Sheehan Gomer. I guess I want to throw out there also as a perspective of a parent, a kid in faith formation here. I like the new language I like the new language and I like the new layout. I think that it does engage in conversation, right? And I think that's good for our kids. But the main reason I support it is that I like the emphasis on doing, right? It's not enough to be right, we need to do right. And I appreciate that aspect of the language.
Thank you, Patrick.
Just very simply, I'm going to request that if you are able, please come to this microphone. Just makes it easier for everybody to see.
Thank you, Jesse. And thank you, Jesse, for doing all of this so we can all see and hear.
Hi, I'm Jan Larson. I've been thinking about this for a long time. I do not support the revised language. I will vote no. And I know that we will come out of this with a win-win. We're not being pitted against each other.
Mm-hmm.
We will come out of this potential conflict and, wide divergence of opinions, healthy and happy and loving each other, just like we always do. I think it's premature. I agree with Mary that it seems like, a year ago, Tricia, I think we brought it up at an Elder Journey meeting, and then Tricia started a conversation. She preached. Perry had that, the kids did the Sunday morning service. So we've done some, but look at it. I mean, we're right up against the end of it, and we're just now getting to the real juice of it and really having the really rich, deep conversations, which will not divide us. So I'm going to vote no, and look forward to continuing rich conversations, because I think it's not the destination, it's not the end thing, whatever happens at GA. It's the journey on the way, and the journey will continue. And let's keep the rich conversations going, and that way we all win. Thanks.
Thank you, Jen.
I'd just like to say that I support the revisions to Article 2. I think they're not perfect, and neither were the old values. The old values have words that can be interpreted in different ways. In some ways, perfection can be the enemy of the good, and I think these ones, like Patrick said, are a more active language. And just reading through the revised values, it doesn't just say who we are, but how we can be better, how we can live our values. I also think it would send a great message to GA to vote this unanimously, send all delegates to vote for these revisions. And I appreciate the democratic process of representing this congregation and how ready we are to accept these revisions or not. I think it would send a message that we're listening to people who feel marginalized within our UU community and who have been pushing for this process. A UU church that has a white history, a racist history, you know, and if we're ever going to move beyond that, we need to listen and work on how we can change and adapt and show ourselves to be a progressive religion and not a conservative religion. So that's all.
Thank you, Danny. What? We have two more. It looks like there are two more people who would like to speak, and then we'll call. Thank you, Charlie.
Okay, somebody's really tall. I'm not that tall. So I was about to say that, as a matter of fact. I am Alexis Capon. Some of you know me really, really well. Some of you have known me since I was tiny. I attended this church back when we were over there, and I was like 4 years old, something like that, when my mom came and brought me. I've been coming, I was raised UU. I've been coming for over 30 years now. And I grew up here. Carolyn did my coming of age. Carolyn then later married me and has dedicated my daughter. I also lived in North Carolina and attended churches there. I lived in Massachusetts and served as a director of faith formation at 3 different congregations, working with 3 different groups, while also working as an admin for Sanctuary Boston, which is it's a congregation, but it's not it is a non-standard congregation, I guess. Is that yeah, something like that. It's a community. It's an amazing community. Either way, I've got a broad range of experience. I got to know many DREs from across the country and also from outside of the country. And what I know is that whether or not the 7 principles remain in our bylaws, they are still something that will get referenced. And they will be used by people as a source of inspiration, as a source of meaning, just like they are by Canadian UUs who don't have it in their bylaws, because the Canadian Unitarian Council does not include the 7 principles in their bylaws. And yet, Canadian UUs still talk about them. And I know, working as a youth advisor and as somebody who has grown up here and worked with youth in many different congregations, that this language of action means a lot. It means a lot to have us have an outward-facing, we are going to do something. We're not just going to say good words and work on making ourselves a good person. We're going to be a good force in this world that we live in. And having those words there that we'll have to have conversations about, and it will continue rich conversations as we explore what do they mean. But it means a lot to continue knowing that this faith I've grown up in is continuing to change and evolve and embrace the world that we live in. I think that's everything.
Thank you, Alexis. Thank you. Tony, are you? Yeah. Mm-hmm. We have time. We're taking time.
Hi, Tony Rose. I'm voting no. I don't. Well, I do. I love the 7 principles and the sources, and I already feel they're being subdued, and they've been subdued for some time. And I think I'm not sure why exactly, but I just don't feel they're being. We're seeing much of them now, and we haven't even voted on this yet. I think there's some great stuff out in this new, and I think the discussion's been great, and I think the ideas are great. I just don't think it belongs in Article 2. I think the principles and the sources are, I feel like it's who we are. It's how I've defined us to other people. It's, and I don't get a lot of resonance out of the new Article 2 revision. That being said, it does seem like it's got a lot of push behind it. To me, it reminds me, unfortunately, of my Catholic upbringing, and I feel like it is being pushed to some degree. So that's why I say a no vote means we step back and rethink this. Where with a yes vote, it's set in stone and it's a done deal indefinitely. So that's my opinion.
Thank you, Tony. We're going to call the vote so quickly.
These considerations are brought up every 15 years. So it's not indefinite. Could be looked at again in 15 years.
All right. Thank you, Kyle. There is...
To call a vote, you have to vote on it. No more discussion.
Oh, is there, if there's no more discussion, thank you. I was reminded of the Democratic Rules of Order. Do we have more discussion? No? All right. We have a motion on the floor. So, and before I read the motion, let me tell you how we're going to do this. Because of the percentage piece, takes a little bit more math. So when I call the vote, I will ask all in favor, please hold your cards up, and then Sally and Katrina will help collect those votes. Actually going to collect the cards. It'll just be easier to, and then I will call for the no votes, and we will collect those cards. Then Katrina will tell us about phase 2, and while that's happening, Kathy Smith-Carolan and Janet Beebe will do the math so that we can have the final results. Sue?
Yeah, I just have a question about the procedure.
Just put the microphone so we can hear.
All right,
Sorry, thank you, Sue. You're getting your steps in today.
Once I'm on a flat surface.
I can walk fast. Just the procedure. Once these are collected, they're not, nobody, because we all got our number next to our name. I don't care who knows how I'm voting, but I think that those should be destroyed and not kept for some.
So Katrina is saying that you did not track the actual numbers.
You didn't do that this year?
No.
We know how many people received cards to vote.
Right.
We did not track the numbers specifically.
Oh, your number and name are not together on
Correct.
the thing. Okay.
Yeah.
We're great.
Here and here, people, Katrina said, just for the record.
Yes. So when you were checked in and got your number, the number was not connected to your name. The numbers are simply so that we know that we have a quorum. But thank you, that's a good question, Sue. Yeah, no, we're not tracking who's voting how. Absolutely not. So the motion on the floor is to approve the proposed revisions to Article 2 of the Unitarian Universalist Association bylaws. All in favor? Thank you, and we will collect those cards. Yeah, keep them up. Thank you for your patience. All opposed? Just put that in that basket, Paul, so that, just so we don't confuse them.
Where's the other basket?
It's coming.
Where's the second basket?
Not sure this is on. So I'm going to invite Katrina Burkhaw to come up and tell us about phase 2 of the building project. And hopefully by the time she's finished talking, we will have the results.
Good afternoon, everyone. So we got our partition. Did you see that? We don't know how to use it yet, but it arrived on Thursday, which was the final piece of phase 1. Steve.
It was requested that I come in for training on that.
Yes. So far, one person has been trained, and that's Tammy. So you'll be, yeah. So don't, you can admire it, but don't really touch it. Yeah. But anyway, it does have doors in it, so, and it will be able to open and close once, there's more people trained to do that. Anyway, that's exciting stuff. So that's phase 1, which included, our first air source heat pump in the choir director's office in the back, which didn't used to have heating or cooling and now has both there. So I'm very excited. I love geothermal, but I'm very excited, to be moving forward. And I'm actually happy they're not digging up the whole back of our parking lot, because we have a lot of complications already. How deep those wells would be? The wells would be about, I believe, 250 to 400 feet deep, and they would need to be probably 10 to 12 wells. So it would not have been a simple project. But if you ever hear of somebody doing it, it is cool. Vic and Janet Merolda did it at their house. They have geothermal there. So phase 2, you can go to the next slide. This is our plan. It's the same. A number of you have seen it before, but not recently. I think now we may be able to post these pictures, but it's 3 what are sometimes known as outdoor rooms with trees, hedges, greenery, sidewalk. From the right, you can see that's where the street entrance, there's going to be an entry area, with more clear, this is where you come in. There will be sidewalks. They will be, dry. They will be wet at times, but they won't be full of puddles or roots and stuff. They will keep you safe there.
Not wet, white. Not black, not white.
They're likely to be concrete. Yes, they will be wet when it rains. That's what I was saying. Then there's the family courtyard outside. So now we have this community room. And we have the double doors to get out of it. And there will be really cool stuff to go outside and do when it's there. And then the multi-purpose area outside here of Unity Hall is less figured out exactly what we're going to do there, but so it'll be you can see in the sketch that we could put a tent if there was a big event, like when we've had people, what do you call it? all kinds of wonderful events here. Anyway, next. So here's what we're starting with. Some of it's been improved already, so that the garbage thing is no longer as featured as it once was there. But we have blacktop that goes right up to the building and stuff. So as somebody, actually Neil Overstrom said, he's like, whatever, even if you can't do everything you want, whatever you do will be transformative. It will be an amazing improvement. We won't be able to, we'll see these pictures a year from now and say like, oh my goodness, I didn't remember it was that unattractive. So next, finally. So again, there may be some opportunities. We're in the process of figuring out for donations for specific things, but we have the bulk of the money we need to do this, we believe. So hedges, trees for shade, natives where possible, easy maintenance. We told our landscape architect is a priority, and I think he really heard us and made an effort to do that. A children's area with boulders. The one taken on the lower left is at the DPNC Nature Center in Mystic. And I see them around now. I'm like, oh, look, they've got boulders in their children's area so they could, climb on it, but not really get hurt if they fall. And a rubber surface, which is another thing that could be expensive, but it's really cool. And if you look around at playgrounds, as I have been, you'll see that that's a really nice feature, although, wood chips works too. There. And finally, we're excited. I'm excited. We have a team here. It was mentioned that the the need for new HVAC system has an impact on us. The major impact it has is timing. And so right now, the architect has completed plans. There's a copy of them in the library, not posted, but rolled up rolled up there, and we'll go to bid and find out more precisely what it'll cost, and we'll probably choose the firm that we're going to work with once we know the timing. And I had asked him, I said, well, can't we go out to bid now? Then we can get more information. He said, the contractors don't want you to be like, tell us exactly what it'll cost, and then like, oh, actually, we're going to do it next year, and that. So we do not know our timing. It depends. The HVAC system is not incredibly complicated. It does involve bringing a crane here, which would be right next to the building in the way of where you would have our beautiful outside stuff. But it depends if things are back ordered. That's the complicated part. So once we know that, maybe it'll be midsummer, late summer, or next spring that we'll do it. But we'll send it out for bid once we know. So Kenton Frost Landscape Architects out of Mystic did the plans for us. He worked with us many times. The All Souls building team has about 25 souls on it. Everybody is always welcome to come to our meetings, bc@allsouls.net, or talk with someone on the committee. Any questions? Yes, Tina DeBosque.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you, sorry, and thank you.
Tina. Okay, thank you. Tina DuBosque. Are we keeping our river birch?
Yes. Are we keeping what?
Yes. Our river birch.
What a wonderful question. Are we keeping the river birch? Yes, we are keeping the river birch, and it will no longer be a tripping hazard, and it will, I think, be happier, although Brian Kent rather, said, he's like, this is one of the happiest river birches I've ever seen. It's doing well. We did have it pruned this spring, early spring, reduce the canopy a bit, and have a little bit higher shade, but also reduce the canopy in anticipation of the roots being disturbed a little bit when the blacktop is removed.
Oh, okay, so the blacktop's
So less
being
stress on
removed.
the tree.
And the roots will be happy and not trippable?
The roots will be so happy. There will be seating around it. You won't be trying to walk through it. Yeah.
Thank you.
There. What a great question. I'm so glad you asked. Are you happy? Yes.
We are so happy, and the vision is amazing. And thank you, Katrina, and the building committee for all your work and thoughtfulness.
So the count has come in, and there were 62 members who voted yes for the Article 2. There are 25 members who voted no for the Article 2 revisions. 62 members equals 71%. 25 members equals 29%. Therefore, it turns into 4 delegates for and 1 delegate against Article 2 revision. Okay.
All right. Thank you, Paul. Thank you, everyone, for showing up, for staying. And we are now going to, before we extinguish the chalice, I just want to express gratitude to our amazing staff, for Reverend Carolyn, for Perry, for Reverend Katrina, Tammy, Jesse, and Adam. Am I forgetting? And Arlene. What an amazing team. Thank you to all our volunteers and for all of you for showing up and staying. And let's extinguish our chalice now. Speak with us. Our worship and meeting has ended, but our service is not yet done. May our spirits be renewed and our purpose resolved as we meet the challenges of the week. Our chalice flame is extinguished until once again ignited by the strength of our communion. Amen, and thank you.